All right, so let's go over first a couple of rules on what you're looking for when you're getting your domain. So the problem areas with a domain which I like to call them problem areas because these are going to be the areas where you can kind of see why your domain is going to be a specific set of values and how to identify what those values are going to be. So when you're working with your domain, the first thing you need to know is that for your square roots, if you have a square root in your equation, you have to find a domain so that if you're using the square root, all values must be positive. And I know the other day when I was working on the Zoom session with everybody, I did accidentally say that you can't have a 0 in your square root like this, which isn't actually true because the square root of 0 is just 0. So you can have a 0 in the square root, but you cannot have a negative number when we're talking about using real numbers for the domain. So what I mean by this is, I know in some math classes, like in college algebra, you go over numbers like having a -2 in the square root. And so what you have with this is you would have a complex number because you would use I. So that's why for some parts of math, you will see a negative in the square root, but a lot of times that gets transformed into a complex number. But when we're talking about real numbers and real values, you cannot have a negative number under your square root. And then just a quick note for this, for everybody to kind of like recognize as well, is that you can have a negative in a cubed root. So if we're talking about like the cubed root of like x squared plus 4, something like this, like if your root is cubed or if it's an odd root, these rules do not apply because you can have a negative value in a cubed root or an odd root. Like this number is valid. But for even roots, and I think that we're mostly going to be working with square roots, you cannot, this rule, this is the rule. So just kind of a quick reminder there.